Breaking news! Elon Musk to buy OnlyFans only to delete it. No, of course not. This is bullshit and engagement baiting of the worst and gayest sort, and unfortunately, X still does not have a feature to simply report posts like these as fake news and have them be deleted swiftly. And thus this post, which admittedly both has a clear parody account little label there, and parody in the channel description, etc., the post spread at the speed of stupid across the internet, on countless other accounts whose media literacy levels rival that of the average prog. You know, nothing has made me more pro-censorship than the absolute unmitigated retardation of the average Twittery these days. Or, well, honestly, that's being optimistic. That is assuming that these people are merely moronic rather than actively malicious, which, frankly, in this day and age, Occam's razors can be flipped straight upside down. If you see something being utterly idiotic, assume malice first, rather than simple incompetence. But the reason why I want to talk about this and engage in partially the same practice myself, I do admit, is because now that OnlyFans owner is passed on after a battle with cancer, no, contrary to popular belief, he was not smitten by the heavens themselves. The incredibly profitable company, mind you, is up for grabs at a hilariously low rate. 3.5 billion it's valued at. Now that might sound like a lot of money, but considering that it had 1.4 billion in profit, oh, actually, excuse me, 666 million in profit, which is an interesting number, mind you, as well, out of 1.5 billion in revenue is fucking insane. Listen, if you've got 3.5 billion bucks lying around, buy this. It'll pay for itself very, very quickly indeed, and you can probably sell it off for 50 times the price, assuming that the world gets less, pretentious and puritanical, as the primary reasons for why it is labeled at such a hilariously low cost is because of various platforms having some moral objections in mind of hosting, well, women spreading their chi-chis online, which, fair enough, which is what I want to talk about here. So, these idiotic, obvious parody posts spread across the internet, bringing out quite a lot of reactions from, well, OnlyFans creators, usually saying the same thing like this: OnlyFans has literally changed the lives of millions of people, single mums paying rent, at the expense of serious and lasting childhood trauma to their children, artists funding their dreams. Artists. Now, to be fair, OnlyFans did originally start out as basically kind of a Patreon version for, people doing whatever, but today, when we say artist on OnlyFans, what we mean is Bonnie Blue spreading her cooch for literally 200 men, hoping to not get prolapsed during the process. Entrepreneurs building real businesses from nothing. Well, hey, that's kind of true. It certainly does require an entrepreneuring spirit to turn the most oversaturated asset on Earth, an ass and a pair of tits, into $1 million industry in today's world. To shut it down on a whim would be one of the most selfish acts in modern business history. Some people's entire livelihoods, their families' futures. Ugh. Live on that platform. This isn't a joke, this isn't content, this is people's lives. Oh, these are people's lives, but, And, well, we should not be scrolling down on that thread now, should we? So, this then makes us come finally to our question. Should OnlyFans be bought and deleted? Now, let us for a second ignore the obvious fact that if that were to happen, 5 million alternatives would literally spring up overnight because, as has been demonstrated, women pretending to be your friend and sending you saucy pictures on the internet, it's a damn effective business model. somehow. More, I do believe, because of the selling of the intimacy of it, rather than simply the porn pictures, because again, a pair of tits is probably the single most oversaturated asset in the world at the moment. But a pair of tits sending you a pretty little message saying that you're their very special PogChamp, technically speaking, less saturated. So, obviously then, we come to the societal ills, and OnlyFans has been an enormous societal ill. There is no doubt at this point, because here's the thing. Normally, I consider myself to be extraordinarily liberal when it comes to matters of pornography. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you are engaging with it in the privacy of your own home, you get to do whatever the hell you want. You want to dress up in a puppy costume and fuck each other bloody up the arse? Okay, go ahead, I do suppose. But the problem with stuff like this is that this isn't merely pornography anymore, as I've already alluded to. This isn't purchasing a pair of tits or a picture of a woman's vagina or her very dirty feet for some reason. This is about purchasing intimacy. Okay, I assumed it was just a porn site for the longest time, until I actually decided to check it out a few months ago. I'm like, okay, what is, I can't believe that tits sell this well, and it is literally built to be set up to simulate a social media platform. That's how it's constructed, to make it seem as if you're receiving the tits via DMs, as if you're browsing X and suddenly some gorgeous woman is just like, hey, would you like to see my chichi? Because that is something normal that happens. Although, well, considering the quantity of bots on X these days, it is something that happens remarkably often, along with phishing links and other such things. But this selling of the intimacy aspect, rather than simply the porn aspect, is at the base of a lot of current day problems, where more and more people are actively disengaging from the dating market in favor of artificial relationships, a problem that will only be exacerbated by the continued growth and influence of artificial intelligence, which, I swear to God, by the time we invent haptic feedback gloves and proper VR glasses, humanity is fucked. We are going to wipe ourselves out by simply refusing to breathe. Okay? This is the solution to the Fermi paradox, because it's a hell of a lot easier to build a sex bot than a spaceship, as I pointed out on multiple previous occasions. And so OnlyFans is something that really should be fucking deleted. Even if it is immediately replaced, at the very least you could kind of scatter the degeneracy to the winds, or simply reduce it to the bare pornography that it probably should be for everybody's sanity. And as for the counter-arguments, well, again, the problem is, I actually do understand the veracity of many of these things. Building a business, sure, I mean, it is a business and it does generate revenue. And seeing as my stance on literal prostitution is literally regulate it, make it legal, and tax it, on the one hand, it feels hypocritical. Why is it okay to go to a brothel and literally bang a woman, and why is it not okay to run OnlyFans? Again, it is due to the acidic and degradative nature of OnlyFans, and the clear and present damage it has done to our society. Now, one could happily then argue that in a perfect world, we could ban both, but seeing as prostitution has survived the last 5,000 years largely unscathed, I do believe it to be a far more difficult scourge to eradicate than chi-chis on the internet. As for people's livelihoods, I mean, that too is a valid argument, but you are making a livelihood basically off predating on lonely single men here, and to some extent women as well, as there are male OnlyFans creators too, which is a whole different rabbit hole right there. But again, it is all predating upon the sense of loneliness and societal disconnect that we are seeing more and more in our modern world, with people checking out more and more from society. But as they still obviously have biological and social needs as well, this is an outlet and a way to replace them with an easy way, instead of needing to face your own inner demons and go out of the house to find a real human being. This is bad for us as a species, as a society, on virtually every single solitary level. Morally, obviously, societally, duh, survival as a bloody species. The ills caused by OnlyFans quite simply just outpace the benefits by a million miles. And that's even if we are being generous enough to call this a benefit, as, well, once again, single mums paying rent. Oof. Listen. Whilst I can theoretically understand, again, I can twist my mind into a position where you're like, well, I'll get thrown out of my apartment unless I spread my vagina on the internet. Okay, but consider the damage you are doing directly to your child. We are no longer talking on the, wilder ephemeral front of larger civilization or men in general or the Western world. We are talking about your child having been approached by another child with one of those fancy little flip phones. Not because they actually own them, everybody's smartphones these days, but because flip phones are way cooler, okay? And going, hey, is this your mum? And yes, it is your mum. In fact, it is your mum's asshole spread apart with one of those metal spready thingy bobs. Spatulums? No. Speculums? Yes, that's probably the one. That one's. You know what I'm talking about, don't even pretend. Or your dad, to make this gender inclusive, with a very thick pencil rammed down his urethra. These are not things that school children should be seeing. Especially not people who are related to these individuals. Listen, again, I understand the logistical difficulties and how this is basically impossible, and one could make an endless amount of what about his argument, and oh, but what about how do you compare this to pornography, etc., but OnlyFans is a genuine, actual, unironic societal ill. It does real and demonstrable damage to us all, and I don't even think anybody truly debates it. Even this woman isn't putting forth the argument that this is harmless fun. She is simply stating that there are people who benefit of predating upon young men, and to a much smaller extent, young women, etc. Is this a thing that should be allowed to survive? Is this a thing that should be allowed to exist? And hey, one can then definitely leap into yet further arguments about the puritanical nature of things like credit card companies deciding that you can't watch hentai because that's bad, says Visa. But I'm talking myself into circles here in essence, as we're basically covering the same argument. OnlyFans is simply so much worse than anything else out there that its destruction would near certainly elevate society in general, and might even actually fix some of the problems we've got going on right now. Now, granted, one could also then argue that society is beginning to heal itself as we are seeing a more and more conservative generation rise in the place of the crazies that preceded them, but still, I don't know. I genuinely think that OnlyFans should just be Cheetoed. Just deleted outright at this point. And that is coming from somebody who is vehemently pro-pornography and prostitution as simple biological requisites for half of the human species. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.